Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now October 24th of 2024, and given that there's been a lot of things going on between Bob Iger and the Disney Board of Directors, the ongoing shakeup happening over there at the Disney company, and how it's really impacting multiple divisions out there like Marvel Studios, Lucasfilm, Pixar, and many more, especially how the Disney Plus streaming platform is also getting impacted, ABC ratings tanking in recent weeks. We have a lot more to discuss. However, when it really involves Lucasfilm, this is where it's very much its own entity in isolation when you really look at it in that sense, because you have Kathleen Kennedy running the show, and she is by far the most incompetent producer and president of a film company in the film industry. Now, we already know that Lucasfilm HQ is in shambles, especially after the Acolyte disaster, and now the Rey movie falling apart drastically week by week. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So, one thing about this Rey movie right now is that there is a tangle of arguments essentially happening, and we'll talk more about that in just a second, and how Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, the director of this thing, is having a lot of frustrations with Bob Iger and with the Disney executives. We're going to get into the actual specifics about that, but the Rey movie in its entirety right now is indefinitely delayed and facing a cancellation. Now, this is where it begins to get very complex, because we know that there's been a lot of changes applied to this film. Writer Steven Knight is no more. He's out of the project. They now have no writer involved to actually patch up what was remaining of the script. And this is where things begin to pick up. Now, specifically, with Lucasfilm still listed as the most failed division under the Disney company in recent years, one monumental development that is active involves more to do with the Rey film falling apart week by week, and how its director, of course, is already having a meltdown over specific decisions that were made by Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, and toward writer Steven Knight that left the project. Now, director Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, along with Kathleen Kennedy, not a big shocker, recently attacked the Disney executives, especially Bob Iger, after he applied a drastic cost-cutting strategy to the Rey film that is now, as it turns out, forcing some of the characters to be written out of the project that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy specifically had Steven Knight write into the film's script. The growing development to not just delay and a looming cancellation of this film, impacting Sharmeen, had a major impact on her mental state, but also towards Steven Knight for defending Daisy Ridley. Now, this is where it gets interesting. It turns out in recent weeks, Sharmeen Chinoy was having a very argumentative partnership with Steven Knight, where she wanted to drastically reduce Daisy Ridley's screen time at last minute in the film, and to make Rey more into a full-fledged side character or supporting role instead of a main character lead. Steven Knight heavily disagreed with that, and with Chinoy, of course, with her plans to prop up another character over Rey that would specifically be the epitome of representing DEI. The plan by Chinoy was to make one of the support characters the main character that is said to hold some form of affiliation with the LGBTQ community that would, of course, be tapped into the Rey film. It turns out Steven Knight did not want to be that guy, quote-unquote, connected to an agenda-driven film in the end, and also had creative differences with Kathleen Kennedy as well. Now, Chinoy and Kennedy's plan to flip the script upside down, and after Bob Iger made that decision with his cost-cutting strategy, it is now said to be officially forcing Chinoy to delete the scenes of this new supporting character that were written that was done through the typical Lucasfilm ideology and messaging. The main reason why they were forced to write out this character now is that the character was affiliated with very expensive scenes, as it turns out, that can now no longer be fulfilled after the cost-cutting measures. Chinoy is also having multiple heated battles with Bob Iger after delaying this film and even warning Sharmeen that a cancellation right now is on the table and extremely likely to happen in 2025. Now guys, let me just stop here before I move on. What's interesting about this is the fact that this Rey movie, nobody was asking for this for roughly like a year and a half now at this point, since we've known about this thing in its existence, maybe even more than that. Nobody was really asking for Star Wars Episode 10 is basically what it is at the end of the day. It is a continuation of the sequel trilogy, basically, when you look at the bare bones of it. It is a sequel trilogy based movie 15 years after the events of The Rise of Skywalker, because it has Rey in the film. It supposedly was going to have more sequel trilogy characters that were more on the minor scale to also be affiliated in there. But what's even more interesting here is the fact that they were using the character Rey as playing it safe, quote unquote. This was basically, beforehand, Bob Iger's safe way of making a successful Star Wars film. Kind of like what they did with The Force Awakens, and how that was like beat for beat A New Hope, right? When you look at all the similarities, it really was basically A New Hope 2.0. That's because Bob Iger did openly admit, yeah, we played things safe with The Force Awakens. You guys may recall he admitted that back in 2018, 2019, somewhere around then. Same exact thing is happening here with the Rey film. It's nothing more than playing it safe. So what's interesting here is that, continuing on, Disney is still reportedly going to force a DEI agenda in this film if it meets its day with going back into production. However, the dream character built by Kennedy and Charmin is now no more, that was going to hold more screen time over Rey, and this struck a nerve with Charmin behind the scenes. This tangle of arguments, so to speak, is now leaving the Rey film completely up in the air, with multiple in-studio battles crossing different paths from different people. Iger already hinted that a cancellation could very well occur by the beginning of next year if nothing is settled out yet by this holiday season. So that's another thing here, is that they have to get things settled out by the end of December to get a new writer on board, get the ball rolling again, and to actually also make a decision on whether or not they want to completely rewrite this movie, or if they just want to basically make some tweaks or finish what was not, pretty much fulfilled by Steven Knight. Now, look, I think it's going to be the latter, if anything, if this thing does make a budge. Most likely, you're not going to have them rewrite the entire film. I don't see that really happening. In the end, I think that at the end of the day, Bob Iger is kind of calling out the truth there behind the scenes, that this movie, is most likely going to be canceled. He actually gave that warning to both Kathleen, Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, and others like Daisy Ridley, the star of the film. And nobody's happy about it, right? Because they view this movie basically as their dream project. Basically a dream movie to basically have a sequel trilogy based movie, because it featured Rey, to kind of play things safely to see if Kathleen Kennedy can have one big success after her contract renewal. That's basically her outline. That's basically her plan. She wants to have a successful Star Wars film at some point in time in her career that holds no criticism. Well, I don't know what she was thinking, but nobody was asking for a movie like this. And Charmin Obaid-Chinoy having a lot of problems with all of these revisions, I think it serves her right, honestly. I really do, because this comes from entitlement. This comes from directors that have a lot of self-absorbed thoughts about an actual project, and we'll have to wait and see where this goes. But overall, I would like to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.